You can make good money and still end up broke. Not because you're careless, not because you're lazy, but because you're playing a game you don't even realize you're losing. Here's the uncomfortable question. What if the problem isn't how much you earn, but how you think about money? Because most people don't have a money problem, they have a behavior problem. And behavior doesn't show up on your bank statement. It hides quietly until one day it's too late. If you're the kind of person trying to actually understand how money works, not just chase it, then stay with this. And yeah, this is exactly the kind of thinking that separates people who struggle forever from people who quietly win. So if that's you, you'll probably want to follow this channel. Now here's where it gets interesting. Suze Orman, in The Laws of Money, doesn't start with investing strategies. She doesn't start with saving hacks. She goes somewhere far more uncomfortable. She points at something most people avoid. Your relationship with money is emotional, not logical, and that changes everything. Because think about it, if money were purely logical, everyone with a decent income would be financially secure, but they're not. So what's really happening? Let me ask you something. Have you ever spent money and instantly felt regret? Or worse, spent money to feel better even though you knew it wouldn't last? That's not a math problem. That's emotional wiring. And here's the core idea for today. Money flows through your life the same way your emotions do. Unstable emotions, unstable money. Avoidance, debt grows quietly. Fear, opportunities get missed. Impulse, wealth disappears.
It's not about discipline. It's about awareness. And here's the twist nobody tells you. You don't control your money decisions in the moment. Your past does. Every belief you absorbed as a kid, every fear you picked up watching your parents, every silent anxiety about not having enough, it's all still running in the background, like a script you never agreed to. And it shows up in small moments. You hesitate to invest. You overspend to impress. You avoid checking your bank account. Not because you're irrational, but because something deeper is pulling the strings. Let's go deeper. Why do some people sabotage themselves the moment they start doing well? They get a raise, and suddenly their expenses rise even faster. They save money, then accidentally spend it. They get close to financial stability and somehow drift back to chaos. Why? Because your identity has a financial comfort zone, and if you go beyond it, your mind pulls you back. Sounds crazy? Then answer this. Why do lottery winners often end up broke? They had the money, they had the opportunity, but they didn't have the identity to hold it, so they lost it. This is the part nobody wants to face. You don't rise to the level of your income. You fall to the level of your financial self-image. And if that image is broken, more money just makes the fall harder. Now here's where it gets uncomfortable. Most people think, I just need more money. But what if more money would actually make your problems worse? More spending, more pressure, more mistakes. Because the root issue is still there, untouched, invisible. And that's exactly why people stay stuck for years. Not because they're not trying, but because they're solving the wrong problem. So let me ask you something again. When you think about money, what do you feel first? Stress? Guilt? Fear? Excitement? That first emotion, that's your truth. And that truth is shaping every financial decision you make, even the ones you think are smart. Now here's the real tension. If your emotions are driving your money, and your emotions are shaped by your past, then who's actually in control? You? Or a version of you that was built years ago? Because if you don't answer that, you'll keep repeating the same financial patterns. Different numbers, same story. And here's where things start to shift, because once you see this, You can't unsee it. But awareness alone isn't enough, because in the next part, we're going to uncover something even deeper. Why facing your financial truth feels so uncomfortable, and the hidden reason most people avoid it at all costs. Because here's the truth most people never say out loud. Facing your financial reality feels like facing yourself, and most people aren't ready for that. Think about it. Why do people avoid checking their bank account? Why do unopened bills sit on the table for days, sometimes weeks? It's not laziness, it's protection. Because numbers don't just show money, they expose behavior, patterns, mistakes, and deeper than that, they expose identity. Here's the uncomfortable moment. You open your banking app, your chest tightens. You already know what you're going to see, so you hesitate. Not now. I'll check later. I already know it's bad. That tiny delay, that's not about money. That's your brain trying to protect your self-image. Because if the numbers confirm what you fear, then you have to confront a painful question. Is this who I really am? Someone who can't manage money? Someone who keeps messing up? Someone who's stuck? And that question, it's heavy. So instead, you avoid. But here's the twist. Avoidance doesn't reduce pain. It delays it and multiplies it. Every day you don't look, the anxiety grows in the background, like a quiet noise that never stops. And eventually, it gets louder than the truth itself. Now let's go deeper. Why do people say they want to change, but stay exactly the same? It's not lack of information. Everyone knows the basics. Spend less, save more, invest. Simple. So why doesn't it happen?
Because change threatens identity, and identity always fights back. Here's what that looks like in real life. You decide to be better with money. You create a budget. You feel in control. For a few days, maybe a week, everything feels different. Then something happens. A stressful day, a bad mood, a moment of boredom, and suddenly you order food you didn't plan. You buy something you don't need. And in that moment, it feels justified. I deserve this. It's just one time. I'll fix it later. But it's not about the purchase. It's about returning to who you were. Because your brain values familiar over better, even if familiar is hurting you. Let that sink in. You're not failing because you're weak. You're failing because your brain is trying to keep you consistent. Consistent with your past. Consistent with your identity. Now here's the dangerous part. Every time you repeat the pattern, you reinforce it, like carving a deeper path in your mind. Spend, regret, avoid, repeat. And over time, it stops feeling like a choice. It feels like who you are. That's when people give up. Not out of logic, but out of exhaustion. Maybe I'm just bad with money. Maybe this is just how I am. And once that belief locks in, everything changes. Because now, you're not trying to improve, you're trying to confirm a story. And your actions will always match the story you believe. So if your story is broken, your results will be too. Now here's something even more subtle and more dangerous. Some people don't just fear losing money, they fear having it. Sounds insane, right? But think about it. More money means more responsibility, more decisions, more visibility, more chances to fail. So what does the brain do? It keeps you at a level that feels safe. Not successful, safe. That's why people self-sabotage right before a breakthrough. It's not coincidence, it's protection. Because stepping into a new financial reality means becoming a new person, and that's terrifying. So instead, you shrink the opportunity. You delay the decision. You second-guess yourself. You stay where it's familiar. even if it's painful. Now ask yourself this. How many times have you said, I'll start next month. I'll fix it later. I just need more time. But deep down, you knew it wasn't about time. It was about discomfort. Because real change forces you to sit with something you've been avoiding for years. Your truth, your patterns, your habits, your emotional triggers. And most people, they never sit with it long enough. They distract, they escape, they reset the cycle over and over again until years pass and nothing really changes. Different income, same behavior. Different goals, same outcomes. And here's the tension building under all of this. If awareness isn't enough and motivation fades and discipline breaks under pressure, then what actually creates change? What breaks the pattern? Because in the next part, we're getting into the one shift that changes everything. The moment you stop managing money and start redefining who you are around it. Because the truth is, you don't fix your money by changing your habits. You fix your money by changing who is making the decisions. Let that land. Because as long as the same version of you is in control, you will keep creating the same results. No matter how hard you try, no matter how motivated you feel, no matter how many fresh starts you give yourself. Same identity, same outcome. So the real question is not, how do I manage my money better? The real question is, who am I when it comes to money? And most people have never answered that. They've labeled themselves. I'm bad with money. I'm a spender. I'm just not disciplined. But those aren't facts. They're identities you've practiced, repeated, reinforced, believed, until they felt permanent. But here's the shift. Identity is not something you find. It's something you build. And if it was built once, it can be rebuilt again. Now here's where it gets real. You don't become financially stable by saving more money. You become financially stable the moment your standards change. The moment you say, this is who I am now, and your actions start aligning with that. Not perfectly, but consistently. Because identity doesn't change in one big moment. It changes in small decisions repeated under pressure. Let's make this concrete. Old identity. I spend when I'm stressed. New identity. I face discomfort without escaping into spending. Feel the difference? One is reactive. The other is intentional. And here's the key. The moment you interrupt the old pattern, you create a crack in the identity, even if it's small. You check your bank account, even when it's uncomfortable. That's a crack. You pause before buying something impulsively. That's a crack. You tell yourself, not this time. That's a crack. And cracks let light in. Now here's the part nobody tells you. At first, it feels fake, forced, like you're pretending to be someone else, because you are. But that's how identity works. Before it becomes natural, it feels unnatural. Before it feels like you, it feels like effort. And most people quit right there. They say, this isn't me. This doesn't feel right. I'll go back to what I know. And just like that, they step back into the old version of themselves, safe, familiar, stuck. But the people who change, they push through that phase. They act like the person they want to become before they fully believe it. And slowly, something shifts. The discomfort fades. The decisions feel easier. The new behavior becomes default. Not because they forced it forever, but because their identity caught up. Now, think about this. What would your financial life look like if you trusted yourself with money? Not feared it, not avoided it, but trusted yourself. Would you check your accounts differently? Spend differently? Decide differently? Of course you would, because trust changes behavior instantly. And trust isn't built from success. It's built from keeping promises to yourself. Small ones, quiet ones, the ones nobody sees. You say you'll check your finances, and you do. You say you won't impulse buy, and you don't. You say you'll face the truth, and you follow through. Each time, you prove something to yourself. I can trust me.
And that is the foundation of everything. Because once you trust yourself, you don't need pressure. You don't need motivation. You don't need constant discipline. You act in alignment without fighting yourself every step of the way. And that's when money stops being chaos. It becomes calm, controlled, intentional. Not perfect, but different. Now here's the final thought, the one most people avoid. If your financial life is a reflection of your identity, then changing your money means letting go of who you've been. And that's not easy, because there's comfort in the familiar, even when it hurts. So the real transformation is this. You stop asking, how do I fix my money? And you start asking, am I ready to become someone new? Because everything changes after that. Take a second and sit with this. Where are you still acting like your old self? Where are you choosing comfort over growth? And what would the next version of you do differently today? Not next week, not next month, today. If this made you think, really think, drop a comment and share what hit you the hardest. And if someone came to mind while watching this, send it to them, because sometimes one shift in perspective changes everything.